when the stream's over. Super cool stuff, because we all want to know what the interior is going to look like, right? Can you tell I'm fired up by that question?
Just a little bit. Hey, I'm going to keep grabbing some more questions here out of chat. Again, part of what we do is we've got some cool software on the back end that pulls questions out. So if you've got a question, tag us at NASA Spaceflight. And then also super chats that come through. Those get pulled into some cool software, and we are able to reach in, and then we spend 8.5 minutes answering it. So we will get caught up a little bit. I am absolutely not saying that's a bad thing. I enjoy all the discussions we get to have. So
yeah, definitely a good explanation of our meandering discussion stuff.
Yeah. Here is one. Let's see, where did I just get that? Here we go. Jocelyn Wagner a while ago asking, or just saying, speaking of interstellar travel, wouldn't it be a misnomer to call Boca Chica a starbase? I've read sci-fi for 30 years, and whenever a starbase is mentioned, it's always referred to being in space or in an asteroid, etc. Thoughts? This is just one of those naming things, right? Where we get this all the time. We'll get people in the YouTube comments. Don't read the comments, right? But I see it in there, and they're like, "Oh, stop calling this Starship. It's not going to go to other stars. It's not even going to go into orbit. It's not going to other like this sort of thing, right?" People liking to have their opinion tossed into the mix. We just don't have a microphone like we have sometimes. But it's interesting. Like, is it a starship if it's not going to other stars? It is a star base if it's not operating or supporting activities to other star systems at the very least. Or are we sort of jumping ahead of ourselves? Like, where are we going to go once we actually have an interstellar craft? Will we call it a galactic base then? And then we just, I don't know. But I think one way or the other, it's Elon's ship to name. And if he wants to incorporate a place called Starbase because that's inspiring or cool or whatever, I think on the whole, he's allowed to maybe do some cool things. I don't think anybody's going to begrudge him naming something cool. It'll certainly get the likes, that's for sure. So you can't please everyone. Exactly right. Mr. H in chat says you can't please everything. Boy, you aren't wrong about that. That's for sure. But Jocelyn, it'll be interesting to see what happens, what sort of shakes out there. I get you though. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Let's see here. Takanara. Actually,
is that Takanara, I think that's the last lift going down now, which means I am going to move.
Yep, and they've tensioned the straps as well. Look at the load spreaders there. Those are actually not slack. Yeah, go ahead,
I'm going to move rapidly.
You're clear to move. You can see they've actually brought the slack out of those lines. A little sad I wasn't on that camera. Yeah, go, Jack. You're clear. A little sad I wasn't on the camera when they did that, but we were talking about star bases. You know how it goes. So again, folks, a lot of cool conversations. We're sitting here for 5, 6, 7 hours. We're switching off hosts and stuff like that. And it's not all technical. And the heat shield tiles, the thermal protection systems are made of a composite ceramic explosive. Actually, it's not explosive. I made that part up. But we don't always talk technical stuff. Sometimes it's just hanging out with other cool space friends. Look, Chris over here in chat says, if you build something, you get to name it. I thought it was about planting a flag. Like, once you showed up with a flag, then, so if I ran over there to Starship and put a flag on it, would I get to name it? I'm not exactly sure what the rules are. There's something about having like an army to back that up or something, but I'm not exactly sure. Let's see here. This is from Takanara, that's what I was saying. Saying, the first Starship launch, they should send a Cybertruck to Pluto. Honestly, would love if they landed a Cybertruck on the moon and drove it around autonomously. That would be really cool if they were actually able to put an autonomous rover on the moon, like modify a Cybertruck so that it was, I don't know, rad hardened or whatever you would need to do, vacuum hardened, what the right terminology there is. But that would be a cool thing to do, especially for the first Starship to get to the moon. And I would be interested. Like, imagine the silly thing sitting on the moon and then the door opening up on the side and a crane going out and lifting a Cybertruck down to the surface of the moon. That would be ridiculous, but my kind of ridiculous. I think that's the right way to say it. So it looks like those lifts are coming down, y'all, about halfway down the side of SN11, and we'll continue to watch. Jack's getting a new position. Maybe we'll see the safety meeting as well. We see them all sort of huddle up, and then when they start to get on the taglines and stuff, you can really see that they're going to go for the lift. But they'll be lifting the Starship up from where it is right now and putting it on the dark stand that's sort of in the foreground. See at the bottom of Starship, there's that darker block, like building looking thing. That's what they're going to put Starship SN11 on top of. That's Pad B. Suborbital Test Stand B, I guess. Let's see here. Laug Christensen says, hopes this flies soon. I fell asleep just before SN10, so I missed it. Love the streams. Well, not expecting it to fly today. It may have a crane-assisted takeoff, but it will not be free flying or free falling. Like, neither of those things going to happen. So appreciate you stopping in, Log. Not sure you'll see it get lifted by the crane today, but I think we all hope that it gets airborne sooner rather than later, because don't we like seeing those things go? Here is one. General Urge says, I'm working at a school, and I show my students all launches of SN, and they love it. General, thank you so much for sharing what's going on, and especially with students, helping instill a love or interest at the very least. You don't have to grow up to be astronauts or people that are going to be mining the belt or whatever. Just people down here that are going to be, I don't know, accountants and appreciate spaceflight. That is another good thing for humanity, I think is the right way to put it. We appreciate you there, General. Shout out to the class as well. Here's one from Brian. Does SpaceX own the heavy lift crane, or do they rent it out? So the big blue and white crane.
Wait a second.
Yes, Jack.
Sorry, what was the name of that class?
What class?
Yeah.
It was just someone saying that they were sharing it with their students. They worked at a school and they shared it with their students.
Okay, all students of this teacher, drop your pencils today at 2:30 p.m. Sorry.
But it was in Europe. It's past 2:30 p.m.
It's already past 2:30 here. I have failed. Anyway, moving.
You have to have the base information to build a joke upon. You can't just make stuff up like that.
I failed. I completely failed you. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Brian asking about, does SpaceX own the heavy lift crane? That crane, the blue and white crane, I believe that's still a rental, a lease. I haven't seen the paperwork myself. But I don't think they own this one. There are some other ones that they've emblazoned the SpaceX logo on that I think they do own. But this one I think is still being leased, rented. I don't know what the difference is. I would need a space fan accountant to tell me the difference from a revenue booking perspective of cost and expenditures. I don't know. Anyways, that's not my wheelhouse there, folks. I make the bits. The photons turn into bits, and then they come out of your computer and they turn back into photons and they hit you in the face. That's where my work is. Ference sneaking through here as well. Does SN11 have different landing legs than SN10? Jack, you got eyes on that yet? Like, have you seen anything about the SN11 landing legs? Are they just beefier, complete redesigned? I know Jack's moving as well, so it may be difficult for him to respond. We can catch back up there in just a minute. He's getting his other camera set up in a new position before the lift occurs here, so we won't bother Jack right now. Sorry about that. I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't seen any photos showing that they're drastically different. So are they slightly more beefy, or have some other type of or have they stiffened the spring that actually pops them out, or changed the way that they secure? I don't know. I know Elon's talked a lot about different landing legs and being this much bigger and this much wider and stuff, but I don't know. Like, visually, I haven't seen the difference here on SN11. There's a lot to keep up with out there. Let's put it that way. Here we go. Sam Halter. Hey, look at this. This is our buddy Sam. Hope you're doing well, Sam. Says the national media is finally paying attention to the SpaceX Starship. Coverage on many prime time channels. I know I have to email them afterwards and be like, you're supposed to license that, right? Coverage on many prime time channels. You guys are so far ahead of them in knowledge and entertainment. But you may get like a 90-second spot on the news, or maybe like 60 seconds on your nighttime show, where they play a clip of the Starship blowing up and somebody's flashing dollar bills around or something, but sleep until we've talked about Starship and Starship accessories for hours on live streams. So, Sam, appreciate you. We're not stuck into the news cycle. Starship is the news cycle at Boca Chica, and we're here for it. But appreciate the kind words there. Thank you so much for that. All right. Again, folks, if you're just joining us, we're standing by. We see that they've taken the tension out of or they've taken the slack, not the tension. They've tensioned those lines or taken the slack out of the lines connected to the top of Starship there, and should be hopefully lifting it in a while. Sometimes we've seen it wait in this situation for quite some time, but we don't have the official schedule. We can really just sort of watch. Look at that crane and Starship lined up from this angle. We can't tell you exactly what time it may exhibit a crane-assisted takeoff here, but we're going to continue watching it. Just, I apologize that I can't give you a time exactly. I know what it's like. Wayne Bowden, $10. Appreciate you, Wayne. Thanks for stopping in and joining the live stream here. And here is Brent. Let's just go with Brent. Brent says, is there any indication that Starship, once stacked on Super Heavy, will act as a launch escape system? Well, no, we've seen different launch escape systems. Like Soyuz has the tower on top. Crew Dragon has the Draco thrusters that they can use to jump the crew capsule away from the rest of the rocket. A lot of times, those really exhibit or they require a huge differential in the thrust-to-weight ratio between the boost stage and the capsule stage. And so you've got to be able, in those situations, to literally rip the crew capsule off the top of the booster. I don't know that that's something that Starship would be able to do. Like, if you're in a full orbital launch attempt configuration and you have a fully laden Starship and it's got a full complement of payload, whether that's life support for crew or whatever, cargo, whatever it is, I don't know that the Raptors could actually safely move Starship away. We've seen some speculation, like, do they even need a launch escape system? Certainly cargo systems don't usually have launch escape systems. Those are more for protecting crew, like you mentioned. But I don't know that a fully laden Starship would be an effective launch escape system. Maybe it's something to try and, maybe they have some way to quickly vent the fuel, decrease the mass, increase the thrust to weight. We'll have to see, but for all intents and purposes, we haven't seen any clear indication of any other high thrust to weight launch escape system that would protect crew or passengers in a situation like that. Certainly we've talked about, oh, well, it'll be so reliable that they won't need it and all these different things. Man, I'd really like to have some wings to glide in for a landing on, I tell you that much. That's just me, though. No, the wings wouldn't help you in a launch abort situation anyways. Let's see here. And here's one more. Oh, no way. Did we actually get to the end of the Super Chat queue? It's like, what's next once you get to the end of the queue? The Herman Circus says, how do they reinforce the structure when lifting from the top nose cones so the weight doesn't rip the nose cone or other sections apart? I believe it's just all welded stainless steel. The way they put these things together, all of the welds all the way up and down the body have to support that. And I think they have some internal, I don't know if stringers is really the right terminology to use, but just internal structural reinforcements that go sort of longitudinally up and down the inside of Starship that actually help carry some of that weight. We've definitely seen structural reinforcement down at the base on the skirt where you have those 6 landing legs attached. I know that there's sort of beefier segments in there where it transmits the load up the skirt and attaches the landing legs, but the internals of that top section, the cargo payload section, nose cone, whatever you want to call it, I imagine that they have some sort of reinforcement, but I don't know, you know, this percent of the load is carried by this and this percent of the load is carried by that. I can't exactly answer that question for you. Again, y'all, I want to get people accurate information. I have no problem saying, wow, I really don't know the answer to that. Instead of trying to guess, a lot of times you'll see people, well, actually, this is going to be it, and they'll talk as if they know exactly what it's going to be. You know, hey, I'm not exactly sure, but clearly SpaceX has done the math, or else they wouldn't be lifting it by the nose cone like this, right? Being empty helps as well. Durlar also says, yeah, that's a great point. It doesn't have the hundreds of tons of fuel and oxidizer in it, all that methane and oxygen that would normally be in the bottom. It is a lot lighter than it would be when it was taking off, when you have the Raptors sort of pushing from the bottom. So that is another huge help. Exactly. All right. The same way you would lift a water balloon and the top doesn't shear off. I mean, it can hold the weight. Like I said, they've run the numbers. So, all right. I'm not exactly sure what's next. Jack, how you doing? Are you getting moved to the new location? I don't know if you're trying to shoot me video here. Let's see.
And I am back as well.
Welcome back, Michael. How you doing?
Okay. Hopefully, like you were saying, this will not be too long of a wait until the lift happens, but we have seen in the past that sometimes it does take a bit of time.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and text Jack and just make sure. He
Yeah.
may not be on comms, like he may not be able to hear us right now, so just want to make sure he's supported if he needs anything.
A couple of questions about how high SN11 will fly. We're not quite sure, but likely similar to SN8, 9, and 10.
One way to find out, right?
Yep. It will have to, Geek Dad says it will have to be modified once they start incorporating Windows structures at the strap location. So I guess we're saying as they add windows and whatnot to nose cone, they might have to change the way they lift it. And I think once they have that large crane at the launch site, perhaps they will make some changes. But I'm also not sure if those windows are going to be in the same place they were in the original render. I think that render is pretty conceptual, and I'm not sure if we've seen an updated design of Starship in quite a while in terms of the crew version. So,
I mean, we also saw some of the like original things and the artwork of the violinist floating in space with the big picture windows behind, and I think we'll see those or something along those lines coming. But I don't know that the first one's gonna fly that way. You know, I have a feeling we may work our way towards that. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what the final variant of Starship is. And like I said earlier, I bet you dollars to donuts that we see different types of Starship loadouts. So maybe there's like a orbital tourism version that has these big picture windows, and then we have, you know, a cargo version which doesn't even need windows because it's just cargo, and then we have an operational crew version that has cargo area and crew area, and there's like smaller windows on that. Or remember, the windows on a spacecraft, I don't even know if I should say you don't need windows on spacecraft these days. Between all the cameras and external sensors, if you're not doing a tourism like, wow, look at this beautiful view that I can see.
No,
I don't know if you need it, right?
I disagree. I completely and 100%
yeah.
disagree. In fact, when I went to Bigelow, again talking about that trip just because it's pertinent.
Yeah.
They showed us one of them. You know, they showed us the BA. The 330.
The big one.
They had their solution was very large curved screen, which is rational, makes sense, and looked good. But it's just something about not seeing it with your own eyes just kind of irks me. And there were plans to have windows in like a certain part of it. But yeah, I give me my windows, please. I know that's stupid and like monkey brain of me, but it is what it is. And I will shut up now and get my camera spooled up. I am in a pretty good spot.
All right, good deal, Jack. We'll be standing by. Ping me if you need me. But so I agree. I guess to clarify, do you absolutely have to have the windows from an engineering perspective? Probably not. But if you send a meat popsicle into space and you have them up there being crew, do you not want to give them the ability to look out and see the Earth? I mean, I think that you should at least have some sort of little window so they can see straight out with the old Mark I eyeball. As a nice to have, like something that you really want to have on there for the crew to be able to see out. But do they need to be massive picture windows, like something that you'd have at a castle or something like that, or a little functional crew window like on the little ports at the side of the Russian segment of the ISS? I think we'll probably see a couple different designs come down the pipe, so we shall see. Let's see here. What else we've got? Yeah, I'm just scrolling through looking for questions.
Do you think they will improve to extinguish a fire when liquid oxygen and methane are presumably continuing to be leaked out? I don't think a better fire suppression system would have prevented the anomaly that we saw. I'm not positive about that, but I think there was just both ingredients needed for a fire were leaking from Starship, which was the problem they had.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know that you could have continued spraying water forever and not being able to get to the interior of Starship if there was some sort of latent ignition source inside the skirt and you couldn't spray water on it directly. I don't know. You could have dumped the ocean on it and it might have still protected that ignition source and the methane and oxygen inside the skirt. You know? I mean, clearly you didn't dump the ocean on it, but you know what I mean.
We're still getting questions about when SN11 is going to fly, of course, because people are still joining and leaving and whatnot. Probably, I would say there's a good chance it will fly this month. There is a slight chance it could fly by next week. That's not likely, to be clear,